Hello, I'm Des Ford. I'm a freelance studio sound engineer, which basically means I'm self-employed and I work in different studios depending on where bands want to work. I didn't actually, there wasn't really a specific time I decided to be a sound engineer. I'm just really interested in music. I play instruments, I listen to a lot of music, I love music. All my friends who like music, we all socialise through music. So it was just the interest of it made me want to know how recordings were made, how sounds were created and things like that. So that's how I got into it. I mean, there were a lot of colleges now that do sound engineering courses and things like that. I basically learnt on the job, and I was self-taught a lot of the time. I started out, I bought a little 8-track recorder, a few keyboards, a drum machine, and just started creating and messing around with sound and mixing and things like that. So I kind of learnt a lot myself. I'd read a lot of the recording magazines that you get in news agents and things like that. But the main learning for me was actually when I got a job in a recording studio and I had to start learning how to mic up instruments and things like that. So obviously I'd learned a lot through reading articles, also working with other engineers. That's really where I learned my trade. If I was to get a band in for, say, who just wanted to do a day's recording, a lot what you would get out of that session would depend on how good the band were and how well rehearsed. So basically I like to get a bit of homework done. I like to hear what music they want to be doing in the sessions first. You can do that well with things like MySpace or even going to the rehearsals. If you can meet up with the band before the session, which most people will do, and then you can have an idea of, oh, I think this song will work or that song won't work. Some people come into the studio and just try to create a song or change things, and that just all eats into time. So to me, you've got the time restraints are very important. You've got to kind of understand what's realistic, and sometimes the bands don't realise what's realistic. They just think of the money they're paying and they want as much done in that amount of time, but then the quality will go downhill. So I've got to basically setting up a session, I would get the first thing you'd be recording is the drums. So I'd have a good conversation with the drummer. Is he ready? Has he got all the equipment, everything? How good does his drum kit sound? I generally ask people to get new skins and things like that. If they're not very good at tuning the drums, getting the sound right at source, which is important with acoustic instruments. I'll tell them that they need to spend some time getting the sound right, which generally is me tuning the kit, things like that. So I'll get all that sorted out, find out how many songs they need to do on a day. If they're good, maybe a couple, no more than that. As a full rock band, you could actually play them all live. I would have the amps in separate rooms from the drum kit, things like that, so there wouldn't be bleed. Where you'd have the mics on the drums, but you could hear the guitars, stuff like that. So I'd set it all up that way. But some people might want to work to a click track and work on each track differently. So you might do the drums on their own first, just the drummer and the click, maybe with a guide vocal and a guitar, but not recorded, and then do overdubs. But overdubs obviously take more time. So you have to be quite flexible, but understand how they would like to work. If you're a rock band who's been gigging for years and years, you're going to be quite tight as a band, and that's how you're going to want to work. That way you can probably get more work done. I think you can learn a lot yourself with the advent of music technology. A lot of people now are recording on laptops, computers and things like that. So it's very important to me to get an understanding of certain software packages and things like that. Not all, but most recording studios now use Pro Tools or hard disk recording, where you're using a computer setup, generally on a Mac, but you can use PC as well. I mean, it's good it's good to be able to know how to use all the different types of software, but most people in a recording studio will use Pro Tools, so you've got to kind of know what you want to do if you're going to set out as a career. If you do want to work in big studios, you need to learn how to use Pro Tools. You can get Pro Tools LE now, which is basically it's a less expensive version with hardware that works, so you can learn how to use the editing features in Pro Tools, the recording, setting up the mixer and things like that. You can do a lot of that at home or in an educational body, or on, you know, if you can afford to get it on a laptop or something. It's not that expensive now. Yes and no. Yes, in terms of using all the kit and the equipment and knob twiddling and fading and manipulating sound, but not in the sense of when you're in a studio, it's a very social thing. You're working with other people who are very passionate about their ideas and the music, so you have to have really good communication skills. With that comes decision making, being able to address situations diplomatically or maybe not diplomatically depending on the situation, and basically trying to understand what somebody wants from a session, good communication skills. So I wasn't really aware of that. Plus as well, sometimes you actually, it's almost like with some bands you're the dad and you're saying, right, you're trying to organise them, you've got to do this first, we have to do this, or that's not good enough, can we do that again? Getting people's confidence going. So all that I wasn't ready for when I started out recording, and they're really what you learn in the studio, being able to anticipate things like that, and also problem solving. Like you can go to a piece of equipment, it might not be plugged in or it might not work, you might have a channel on the desk that goes down, you've got to like work out ways how to figure these things out. You're not ready for them until you actually start doing it. First and foremost, to be successful, you have to be very passionate about the job you do, because contrary to what a lot of people say, it's not glamorous. You know, you're in a studio for, it can be up to maybe more than 14 hours a day. You don't have a lunch break really, you're eating on the job, things like that. So you've got to be very passionate and love what you do, hard working, punctual. If someone's paying you money, you have to be there on time. That isn't a good start. Also, I mean, a very important one is to be able to organise the session, and the time restraints involved, the characters of the people you're working with. I mean, some might be really professional, some might want to come into the studio and live the rock and roll lifestyle, which you can't do. It's a working environment, and you have to be very level-headed and focused. So there's all that to sort out. You've got to sort out the individuals, the band, the instruments as well. They might come and have a set of strings on the guitar that are just so ancient that there's no top end. So you've got to be prepared and have your own goodie bag with extra things, drumsticks. Be prepared for any problem that might occur with the band, not just yourself and the equipment. When you're on the session, you've got to understand music. You need to know a lot about music, the different like subtleties of the different genres that you're working on. For instance, a rock drum kit will sound totally different to a hip hop drum kit, things like that. As well, I think that a very important one is communication, understanding what the client wants, being able to argue a case because you know technically it might not work as to what they're trying to do, be diplomatic, and as well I think creative and enjoy what you do. I think that's the main one.